No, Indian steel industry today, we have a total capacity of 125 million tons, whereas in the financial year 17, the total crude steel production is expected to be in the range of 95 million tons. Our steel consumption is expected to be around 85 million tons. So we have surplus capacity today. So there is a need for increasing demand in India, for stimulating demand in India, domestic demand. So that in order to meet that stimulation of domestic demand, what are the policy interventions that are required from the government, and also from the industry side, what is that we need to do in order to convince the user industry, compared to alternate material, steel is competitive, steel has relative strengths over other materials, over the life cycle cost of the steel material will give huge advantage to the user industry. That is what industry has been trying to talk to the users, architects, designers, to explain the uses of the steel and its advantages. So both the sides in this conference, we would like to finalize what are the policy interventions from the government, what is that the user industry has to, the manufacturing industry has to do. The two things we are discussing today.
So any specific measures that we can see to bridge this gap, anything that that the ministry and the industry has in mind post MIP and anti-dumping?
We have suggested a lot of things from the policy intervention side. There are majorly one relating to the national building codes, which require to be modified, and in some cases it has to be made mandatory. Otherwise, what is happening today, if you approach any architect or a designer, they are looking at national codes which are little older, so they are very reluctant to use, even though the steel that is produced by the manufacturer today is of high quality, they don't want to change the codes because they will face problems in getting the approvals. So therefore these codes are required to be changed. Thereby the demand gets stimulated because of that. That is one we are suggesting very, very strongly. Similarly, the structural steel usage, there are also the codes which are being used of international reference. So these codes also have to be looked at and they have to be modified. Thereby the steel usage in the structural side can go up quite substantially. Similarly, we are looking at the highways, roadways. So there the crash barriers or the crash guards, they have to be provided for to save the human lives if any accident happens. So from the safety point of view, it is very much essential. Whereas only 15 to 20% of the total national highways or state highways or hilly terrains, they have been covered by the crash guards. So we are requesting to make it mandatory as far as these things are concerned. One more very important point with regard to the policy intervention is concerned, the fabrication of the structural steel, if it is done at the site of the owner, then the duty payable is zero. But if it is done at the site of the fabricator, then the duty payable is 12.5%. Excise duty payable is 12.5%. That is the cost eventually. So this disparity, if it goes up, I think the cost also comes down. Like that, there are a lot of interventions which we are suggesting to the government.
So media reports suggested JSW Steel is looking at acquiring new acquisition, especially because you want to reach your target, and Bhushan Steel Company and Monnet Ispat were in the news. So anything, any headway on that, would you like to elaborate on that?
No, still we are evaluating, as we have been guiding the market, that we wanted to be a 40 million ton company when Indian steel demand grows to that extent of 300 million tons. So in line with that, we continue to evaluate options of brownfield and also greenfield and inorganic growth. So in that there are so many targets which we are looking at. So it is very difficult to comment on any one single target.
And the final question, what kind of a growth do you in steel demand next year, next financial year? Because that would be an important, a way to see if the monetization's effect has finally weaned off.
If we look at financial year 15, the steel demand grew over 5%. So we expected the same demand would be maintained in FY16. That's why we have been guiding that FY17, the steel demand would be 5%. Because of various reasons, either global or local, the total steel demand is growing in this financial year only by 3.5%. Whereas there is a huge amount of thrust on the infrastructure that is being given, and also on the rural economy to be built, and the investment cycle to come back. All these three together, we expect steel demand to pick up in FY18, at least to the extent of 4.5 to 5%.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.